We've got about 142 Lawson customers that we service, and 13 of those are our managed service customers. And this year in 2016, we've completed 11 10x upgrades. From a service offering standpoint, implementation consulting in general, lately, honestly, we've been doing more upgrades than any other thing, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with that process right now. We do a lot of custom development, security implementations, reporting, building interfaces, mostly technical stuff, but we do have some really fine application folks in case and our managed support is essentially, we're currently managing 13 Lawson customers on our managed support plan, and that's essentially, we act as your in-house IT staff, and you get to choose our level of involvement. For some customers, we're basically an enhanced kind of staff augmentation when they're missing all the expertise, and for other customers, we basically own their entire Lawson application from end to end. So we not only manage the day-to-day, keep the lights on, but we also kind of update the servers and do patches and upgrades and things like that for them, just like their own IT staff. And from a product standpoint, a lot of you are familiar with our security reporting product, LSFIQ. And that is that's basically a security reporting application in the cloud, best of breed. We invite you to demo that on our site. There's a live demo you can use, and we have a performance measurement tool for measuring performance of your application server, comparing it to others, and then a data cleanup, more of a methodology and a product kind of built in together. And that kind of wraps it up for Nogalis. So we're going to jump right into this BI and reporting options that are available to us today. So first and foremost, LBI. A lot of you are familiar with that, and it's a great product that we've been implementing for years. And I'm really actually glad that it's not going away because we've got quite a few managed support customers that we're helping with LBI. So that essentially for its reporting mainly uses, most customers use Crystal reports as kind of the back-end BI engine. And then you can also kind of pull Lawson reports and things like that into it. And I'll go over each one of these in detail, or Desi will anyway. There's always Excel add-ins. You can do some very cool ad hoc reports using Excel add-ins, and we'll discuss that. And there's Crystal reports kind of on its own standalone. So if you didn't have LBI but you do have Crystal, you could go that route and do that. There's the SQL Server reporting services, otherwise known as SSRS. And there is something our clients brought to our attention late last year called Tableau, which we'll also be discussing. So with that, I'll pass it on to Desi to cover the bits and pieces of this, and we'll come back and share some more.
Hello, this is Desi Howes. So for the Microsoft Addins, many of you have probably used Addins. They're very simple to use. The query wizard works very well for data dumps out of Lawson into Excel, just to get some quick information into Excel. From there, you can manipulate it, modify it, add for reporting purposes. The upload wizard will help you save time on data entry when you need to update or add a lot of records to Lawson at one time. It helps to eliminate having all that data entry. The upload wizard will actually do a mass upload into Lawson for you. The add-ins are actually pretty intuitive for Lawson power users. They're based on Lawson forms, so when a power user gets into the add-ins, they'll see form names and field names that are recognizable to them because they come straight from the Lawson system. So this is a sample add-ins query wizard that I did out of the item location and item master tables. And as you can see, it's just essentially a data dump. And from there, you can go and manipulate it and make it, format it for your reporting purposes.
So
and since it is, oh, go ahead.
So the nice thing with Addins is, getting it back in Excel. You can use Excel a lot of different ways and kind of put it in, different applications. Obviously, you can save that file and use it inside other applications. But, one of the things that I find really powerful is using pivot tables within Excel. So if you've got this data that comes out and you know how to use pivot tables, which really takes about 15 to 30 minutes to kind of learn how to do that online these days, you can make a pivot table of any of this data and actually do some very powerful reporting with it. The other thing is within Addins, if you use the relations that it has with other tables, it kind of makes it a little easier to find the data you're looking for if you're not very familiar with the data. So I think that's kind of neat as well. But one of the biggest problems with Addins is if you're not writing a very efficient query, you could really tax the entire Lawson server. So every user will feel the pain of you running these reports. I'll give it back to you, Desi.
Okay, so so that's Addins, and like Ken was saying, it's pretty cool because the two tables that I brought together, I don't necessarily need to know how those tables join with one another because it's integrated with Lawson, so it already knows what's related to what. So you just choose the tables that you want to bring data from, and it'll automatically join it. But you do have to be careful because if you are pulling down a lot of data, you could tax the system pretty heavily. So another option for Lawson reporting would be to use Crystal. As we mentioned before, Crystal is the reporting tool of choice for LBI or Infor Business Intelligence for Lawson. So that is the designer that you would use if you're using LBI. But additionally, you can use it as a standalone reporting option. It is very flexible with form building. The designer, you can basically move the fields all around in a format that suits your business purposes. Sectioning and grouping is pretty simple, and this flexibility makes it pretty good for if you need like a form letter or an invoice. I had clients who create invoices in Crystal Reports so that it's basically like doing form letters in mail merge, but they do it in Crystal, so it's dynamic and it pulls the data ad hoc. So Crystal's really good for that. It can also be used with a variety of data sources besides just SQL Server. You can connect to an ADO.NET data set. You could connect to an Oracle data source if your Lawson data is in Oracle. You can even connect to a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. So it's pretty flexible there. It does work best if you have strong SQL query writing on your staff and also a little bit of programming knowledge. To get the most out of Crystal Reports and the Crystal Report Designer, a little bit of programming knowledge will go a long way. And also, the more complex your queries get, the more you're going to want to try to optimize the queries actually in SQL rather than doing it within the report. You also have a choice of business intelligence platform. As we mentioned, Infor BI for Lawson is one of those. There's SAP Business Objects, uses Crystal Reports, or Crystal Reports BI. You can also use it as a standalone option where it's installed on the user's desktop and they can run the reports from there. So the way that you would use Crystal Reports with Lawson is you would deploy to one of the web-based business intelligence tools that we discussed earlier. Then you can use a scheduler to distribute the reports, and you can distribute them in a variety of ways, including email, FTP. You can download the report to a shared drive for someone to pick up later or an application to pick up. You can also create dashboards for your users so that they kind of have the reports that are important to them in one place. There's a little bit of drill down functionality within Crystal Reports. You can add hyperlinks and sub-reports to kind of drill into the data. And this is an example of a crystal report. I did out of the same two tables, the item master table and the item location table. In this case, obviously, whenever I went through the report wizard, I had to tell it how to link the two tables, which is different from the add-ins. But other than that, I mean, when you go through the report wizard, it's very simple. And it's a very quick way to do some grouping, and you can see I've got subtotals there. And then once you get it once you finish the wizard, then you can go and manipulate the report, move things around if you want them to be moved around. It's pretty simple. And you also have the option of creating just a blank report without using a wizard, and that'll be even more flexible, where you can just add fields and columns as you desire. So it's pretty simple. Do you have anything to add on this one, Tan?
No, I guess I do. Nothing you haven't really said, but I mean, I've been using Crystal for a lot of years, and I really like it. I think the bigger problem I have with Crystal is it's not really interactive, right? I mean, when you create a report for a user, there's a little bit of drilling functionality you can build into the tool, but that's it is what you get. And then you kind of publish the report, and the report, once it's published, right? There's not, it can refresh data, but it can't refresh itself from a kind of a presentation standpoint. And we'll talk about that when Dan presents his piece a little bit. And this tabular kind of view of data within a PDF kind of output, that's, I think, what a lot of us are used to, and we've learned how to digest that well. But, I think that's what Crystal can do really well. But, as you said also, it does take a little bit of talent to kind of create a good Crystal report, because you do have to know a little bit of programming. You do have to know a little bit of Crystal and a little bit of SQL, and you have to kind of get a bit of training to really get in there. But obviously, a very, very powerful tool, and works great with LBI.
Great. So SQL Server Reporting Services is very similar to working with Crystal, but as we mentioned, the reporting tool of choice for LBI is Crystal Reports, and SQL Server Reporting Services would kind of be on its own. It is very versatile and flexible, just like Crystal is. And again, this is another tool where you're going to get the most out of it if you have someone on staff who has a talent for writing SQL queries and a little bit of programming experience. It runs on a standard Microsoft platform, so if your organization has Microsoft products, you're not going to be surprised by using this tool. It looks just like any other Microsoft application. It uses a browser-based interface for deploying reports and where users can go and run reports. It is fully integrated with SharePoint and uses integrated security, Microsoft security, and it also, they provide mobile support. So the ways that you would use this reporting tool with LBI is you would deploy the reports to your SQL Server Reporting Services web instance. From there, again, you can use a scheduler just like Crystal to distribute the reports in the same ways that you would distribute a Crystal report. Also, the users have an option of going in and subscribing to reports so that they can receive the reports when they want them and in the format that they want. You can also, again, you can create dashboards for reporting services reports. And it's integrated with SharePoint, so you can create kind of a nice interface for users if you have a SharePoint site for your intranet. And then it offers a little bit of drill down functionality, very similar to Crystal's subreports and hyperlinks. So this is another sample report. It's basically the same report. The difference between the Crystal Wizard and the Reporting Services Wizard is that the Reporting Services Wizard is more of a tabular format. It actually, whenever you finish the wizard, it drops basically a table onto the screen, so that it's more of a traditional reporting type of interface where it's just rows and columns of data. You do have the option of adding individual fields and moving things around and formatting things exactly how you want them, but their default method is to just drop a table. You can do charts and that, I mean, you just have to configure it in reporting services the same as Crystal. So, and again, you can create them from scratch instead of using the wizard, but it's essentially, it's very similar to using Crystal. So I will hand it back to Tan now. It's all yours.
All right. So thank you, Desi. So Tableau. So we, back in, I think, late 2015, a longtime customer of ours came and asked us, they've been using Tableau for about a year with their other applications, and they had an initiative to kind of basically bring all their data into Tableau, but they weren't very familiar with the Lawson table structure, so they asked for our help to kind of get involved, and that was really my personal first interaction with Tableau. And I thought once we started using it that, wow, this is a very powerful tool. And so we brought Dan on board, who's a Tableau expert, to kind of help us figure out that project. And then since then, we've actually helped several other customers spin up a Tableau instance and do some pretty incredible reporting. So the things that I really like about Tableau, it's used by 19,000 plus organizations worldwide, and it lands in the kind of the leader quadrant, the Gartner's Magic Quadrant. Lot of actually, you'll be surprised, a lot of I've found since that a lot of existing Lawson customers are using it within the enterprise, not necessarily with Lawson, but actually quite a few are using Lawson Data within Tableau. And then, so did I skip something here? No, I guess I didn't. And then one of the things I really enjoy with Tableau, which you'll see in a minute, is the interactivity of Tableau. So it's not, I don't even call it a report. I really, a good word for it is to just call it a Tableau. Really, it really kind of visually gives you data, and that whole concept of data is beautiful is really kind of brought to life when you use Tableau. So I'm going to have, we're going to do a little bit of a kind of demonstration of what a Tableau report looks like with Lawson Data in it here, and Dan's going to show us here. I think he's going to share his screen, and we've been trying to figure this out. There we go. All right, so hopefully you guys can see that. Now, if it appears small on your screen, if you hover your mouse over kind of what Dan's screen is showing, and it says Daniel Klaus, next to his name there's a maximize button. It looks like a rounded square with a couple of arrows pointing out. You can click that, and that'll make it more or less full screen on your screen as well, so that you kind of get the same experience visually as Dan has on his laptop here. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. So what we're looking at here is an example of an inventory. So this would be built for, a typical inventory manager, and this is built really straight from Lawson Data. And what it's doing is just giving you a way to visualize items in inventory by category. I've got two levels of category here, and by location. So I can see across the columns here, I've got different warehouses across the country. The color scheme in this grid is kind of, it's showing you items on hand relative to what your reorder quantities are. So where you see red marks, that's basically items you should pay attention to and probably reorder because you're running low. And this sort of crazy looking thing over here is called a tree map. And what it's showing me is for every item in my, sort of category or portfolio or whatever, how many, the size of the box tells me how much it costs. And the color of the box gives me some indication about the average lead time of that product or that item. So what I want to do is just sort of highlight some of the interactivity of this dashboard, because that's where it really kind of comes to life. So just starting in the drop downs here, I can pick, a handful or all of the major classes of inventory that I want to focus on. This is kind of a multi-select for doing that. I've also got some radio buttons here where I can toggle, on or off depending on if I want to include allocated inventory or not, if I want to include items that are on order or not. Some of those totals will kind of twinkle a little bit depending on how those are toggled.
So what I really like about that is that you don't have to change your parameters and run the report again.
Right.
That you just select these things and the report just updates. So it's just that's what I mean by the interactivity. And I think this is a great example of it, but it's not. We'll see some very powerful examples in a minute. But yeah, this is a pretty great one. I think the materials folks on the phone probably are getting a little excited at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go a little further. I mean, so I can use this sort of major and minor class as a way of filtering other items on the report. You can see when I clicked on this class here, my tree map became a lot more useful. I can kind of see the biggest box on the screen is the most expensive item, so something I might want to pay attention to, or something that's going to take me a very long time, in this case 27 days to order, have that right under my fingertips here. And you can, flip through these at will and just see, even down to the minor class level, what that looks like in terms of lead time and cost.
And this is data right out of the IC location table that we pulled out, and it's literally refreshed right out of there. So it can be real time, or if you've got a data warehouse that you can store it in, you could do it at any time, I guess. Yeah,
that's right.
Very cool.
Another thing, I'll talk about hierarchies in a second, but I'm kind of leveraging some of that functionality here, where I can actually kind of on the fly expand to the item level. And another nice thing I can do here is just, if I see items that are pretty much the same thing and I have some inside knowledge that tells me it's really just the same item, I can take and select some of these and right on the fly just create a group of those and say, you know what, just treat those like the same thing.
That's amazing.
And, on you go with your report. So, just some nice interactive things that help you, like Tan is saying, kind of see more into your data, interact with it in a way that makes sense to you, and ultimately gain more insight into what's happening in your organization.
So Dan, how long did it take you to put this report together?
So this is really not that hard to do, and just to kind of show you guys, I'll build this left-hand side just from scratch. None of it really took all that long, but we don't have a ton of time. So what I'm going to do is starting out just describing this hierarchy a little bit. So this just takes a few clicks to set these things up. I've essentially organized it so that major class is the top level, minor class is the next level, and item description is my lowest level. So I can just drag this hierarchy onto the rows shelf, and then I can drag the location to the column shelf. And so right away, I'm kind of seeing this as like a pivot table, the same you'd see in Excel. But what I can do is just really nicely expand that hierarchy one level so I can see two levels of detail. The next thing I'm going to do is just drag my quantity on hand onto the measures.
It's almost like building pivot tables, exactly, right?
Right.
If you know how to do that, it kind of seems like you already know how to build one of these reports, more or less.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It's like a pivot table, but with a million more options and kind of more functionality. So rather than showing the numbers here, I'm going to show squares, and this will make more sense in a second, because I'm going to actually use this quantity versus the reorder quantity as the color scheme, and now it's just starting to take shape. I'm going to adjust the colors to match what we had on the first page. So just using an orange, blue, use the full range there. I'm going to set some options here. What you see sometimes with outliers of data is that you get blown out color schemes where you have one square that's really blue and the rest of everything is just kind of gray. So I'm limiting the scale for that reason. And then just studying this data a little bit, we know that this particular location doesn't really, it's not really working, so we're just going to kind of exclude that on the fly.
So if you're familiar with Crystal, that whole suppression thing you just did, that's like data suppression.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this just makes it one click.
Right.
Over in Crystal, I have to kind of go and figure out how to write that. I don't even know how I would do that for a column, to be honest with you.
Edit your query and put it in the where clause of the SQL query. So then it's just a matter of formatting and sizing. So I can just flip these, rotate it so I can get a little space back in my visual area here. Just I can make these just format this so it's right in the middle. It looks kind of nice as a centered number.
And that's pretty much the report you showed us. That's already that's pretty much there.
It's pretty much there.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I mean, I'm not a Tableau developer, but I'm able to kind of put these things together relatively quickly. Obviously Dan can do circles around me and do some really fancy stuff, but I found that even if I'm not a developer and I just understand kind of that pivot table functionality of Excel, I can put my own reports together quite quickly. And what's really cool is once you publish this, everyone that has access to it on your Tableau kind of enterprise will have access to it immediately. They can share it. And one of the cool things is we've been able to very easily embed these within the Lawson portal and within LBI. So if you have LBI, you can still use Tableau. Just you can embed the reports just the same way as you would really a Crystal report, more or less. In fact, it's really easy because it just gives you a share link, and you can share that report however way you want and whatnot. And you can build a ton of security into it as well. So that I think is really cool. Now I know that kind of that was really for the audience of the materials folks. So I thought I would kind of show a little bit of what a finance person might be interested in here. I'm going to share my desktop if you don't mind. Dan, are you're kind of through with that one?
Yeah, I'll set here.
So let's go ahead and stop sharing your desktop there.
Okay.
All right, and if I can, there we go. So hopefully you guys can see this example. This is actually live from our website. You can actually go to our site and look at these reports and play with them yourself online. They're super cool. So these are embedded reports that are grabbing live data. Okay. So this is an income statement. Now, we're all used to seeing income statements. I still don't know how to read them properly, probably, but I sure like this one. Refreshing. There it goes. Okay. So I can do this kind of a live filtering by these filters here, which is quite nice. I can bring it down to a very specific thing that I'm interested in. But what I really like, let me go back to the all view because I kind of want to see all the data here. If I wanted to look at, cost of goods sold on materials, and I just click on that, I can really kind of get a really good idea of, what that is. If I wanted to look at just gross sales, there's functionality here for kind of sorting back and forth, let's see, we've got a couple of different, let's see here, if I come down and, if I wanted to basically just look at the data behind rents, for example, if I'm if this isn't doing it for me and I want to actually look at the actual data behind this, I can, oops, I keep moving my mouse a little too quickly. There we go. I can actually see the data behind all of that pretty easily and kind of figure out what it is that, or I could download it into a CSV file and do whatever else I want with it. So really the sky's kind of the limit with what you can do with this data. And keep in mind, this is an actual live data set that we're looking at here. And I can interact with this report a lot nicer than I ever could with any other sort of report within other applications. That's one of the things I really like about this. Is another example. It's an executive dashboard, and it's got a path map here of the United States. So if you've got multiple locations and you want to look at data, and what's really neat is it's refreshing again. There we go. So if I wanted to just look at 2015 data or 20. There we go. That's just 2015 data, so I just uncheck that. So I don't have to rerun the report to do that. So that I find to be kind of the best thing about using something like Tableau is that I can just interact with it. And if I wanted to look at just New Mexico here, I'm able to kind of get the report back down to New Mexico and just look at those numbers. And let's say I wanted to just look at supply numbers versus furniture or technology. I can do that very easily, and then I just click back on here and I get the whole thing. And then, so this is kind of cool. I bet that's pretty impressive because I kind of almost fell out of my chair when I saw it. If I wanted to select a specific region, let's say, so I'm on the Western United States, and maybe these regions on the right aren't really doing it for me. Maybe since I'm here in Orange County, California, I'm really just kind of interested in LA and Orange County and San Diego right there, right? So I can really narrow it down by just selecting there on the map and kind of figuring that out. So this is kind of, I think, what makes the delivery of data, it makes Tableau really best in class when you can kind of tell as much about your data in just a second as you would staring at a spreadsheet for hours and on end. And the other thing that I find really nice, because we use Tableau kind of internally as well, is I can see problems a lot easier. I can see this orange thing here and that orange thing there, whereas on a spreadsheet, I wouldn't really be able to see that. I mean, that means my profits are really low in these locations. And if I was cutting very quickly, that's what I would do. So I know the HR folks feel left out by now. So I wanted to kind of talk about this is a really great one that a customer uses actually, and this is one that's just available to use. And a lot of these, tell me, Dan, so that the Tableau reports that are online that you can just kind of download and implement right away. Those are just available on Tableau, right? That's right. There's like a library of like a massive library of really cool reports people have built for their organizations that they publish online. So there's kind of the sharing culture, I think, within the Tableau community, it seems like.
That's right. Yeah, there's an option for anyone called Tableau Public, and anybody can publish there. A lot of times you read the New York Times and they have a cool visualization. The odds are that they publish it to Tableau Public, and then they can embed it and share it anywhere they want. And, one of the things I do when I'm working with a new customer is, just sort of browse through all these beautiful things that people have built and just look for inspiration on what am I going to deliver to this new customer and kind of expand on what's been built. And it's a very creative process. It makes it fun for me rather than just looking at numbers all day. You can actually do something kind of creative.
Yeah, and it makes it really, really great to kind of be able to look at your data visually, I think, and really kind of tell a story with data rather than just kind of talk about numbers more or less. So this is a succession planning chart, and for a customer, talks here about age in years. So this top one here is 62, and the number of employees that fall within that age range. So you've got a lot of kind of young, guys here, and few kind of old timers here, and this is kind of the zone where you're really going to have to be doing top priority planning. And it tells you a lot of information about kind of where these guys fall into. And again, you can do that same type of thing where you're like, okay, well, if I just want to focus on these guys here, what am I looking at? And it seems like this access department, that's not that, right? These access guys seem to be mostly kind of these old timers, and it seems like that department is where I really want to focus. So if I just want to kind of figure this out, I can do that very easily, and kind of focus on problem areas that I really need to be focusing on. So obviously the danger zone is here. You got a lot of folks in this age range that we need to do some succession planning for, and that kind of all fall into this one department. So that's where I need to focus my efforts. Makes it a lot easier to make decisions very quickly, and I like that the word actionable, right? Because data I feel like is great, but unless it's actionable, it takes time for you to decide. But with stuff like this, it makes it a lot easier to just kind of make decisions. And again, we've done this for a lot of Lawson customers, so your Lawson data is just prime for this type of analysis. This is one I think the HR folks are really going to love. This is not one that we built, but I really like it. So if you look at this, this is your employee review. And you probably have never seen it displayed like this, and I can't say that there's a better way to do it. Really, you've got, that your top performers with your low performers, and this is obviously where you want to focus your effort, but you're able to kind of see by employee function how you're performing. So if I wanted to just look at human resources and marketing and sales, I can apply that, and it runs the numbers for me, and it brings back, it seems like, a lot of mid-performers in this. And then let's say I wanted to look at executives. Looks like they don't get reviewed, so that's no surprise. So what's really cool though is what you can do with this report. So this is already great, right? This is already kind of telling a lot of the picture. This is from a telling the story perspective, right? But if I wanted to go back here and just click on these 1%ers, and I wanted to see what the details are. So I can really display a lot of very cool information right away and see what's the deal here. Why is it happening? So first of all, here's the detail of those employees. These are the 1%, the lowest 1% performers, right? So, and I can kind of tell who they are. Obviously, I didn't display any names here, but there's employee IDs and how long they've been in their position. But I can see right here, a lot of them are very recent hires. I mean, this is an older report, so this is like only data up to 2013. But I can see that there's 10 of these employees that are recent hires. So maybe just a recent training issue or something like that, something we've only had happen recently. And from a risk level, I can, risk of retention, I can kind of figure out, that very quickly. And then by loss impact. So what is the impact of losing these employees? And these are obviously formulaic, so you need to kind of come up with what those are. But, you can analyze these different categories of employees quite easily. And then you can kind of see the top, like, what's really, who are these people, and what's the impact of losing them, and, what's the risk of losing them. So I think that really tells the whole story. I think we're all used to kind of running some reports first of all, figuring out how to get all this data in one place. We run a bunch of reports. We review all these reports. We have all these meetings. We go through and try to analyze it. What does it mean, right? What does this report mean? And we can never really kind of sum it up that well, I feel, as you can. I feel like I just summed up this whole thing, and I can make some decisions as to what needs to happen probably within hours. If I had my executive committee in the room, I could probably say some very informative things about my data just by having this data. And again, this is published. It's within your Lawson portal. It's within your Mingle. It's within your LBI. Wherever you want it to be, you can publish it to the specific people that you want. You can just email it to somebody. You can export it to whatever it is. Just all the things you're used to, you can still do. But the interactivity, I feel, is something that most of us are not used to. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I think I got one other one here which kind of demonstrates kind of KPI, and, just the different kind of tools you have. You got this way of updating your report by like filtering up and down like that, or by specific weeks. But really nothing new here that I haven't already talked about. Just kind of you're still able to select very specific things and drill down a little further and sort and things like that. So I think a lot of that is just available to you. Plus, if this was deployed to a Tableau, if this was like actually a published instance on a Tableau Enterprise server, you as a user could technically, if you had the right rights, you could, correct me if I'm wrong, you can just click the edit button, and you can literally edit that report. You can edit the core of that report right then and there yourself without having to have anything installed, really. It's all kind of web-driven. There's obviously a client for Designer that you can install, but you can also do quite a bit of editing just on the web.
Can I point out one other thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we go back up to that 9-box one, it's a little subtle here, but one of the features that is really powerful in Tableau, you notice when Tan clicked here, it jumps to a whole other report. Well, and I can kind of bounce back to where I was. That capability is very powerful. I can basically wire up any dashboard to jump me to another location or to filter things in a very specific way. And that includes jumping to like a URL, like, a web page or something, looking at, filtering another dashboard a specific way. There's a lot of capability that's built up that's all just called like actions in Tableau. So those actions are very powerful and can take your interactivity to a whole different level. It's a very simple case here, but you can do a lot more with it.
Yeah. And then the other thing I really love as a developer, when a customer asks me to do this, they say, "Oh, okay, I want this thing." So this is developed by Decisive Data. This is a really cool company that does these amazing Tableau reports. I can literally just click the download button here and I can get the Tableau workbook and start from that. I'll be done with this report in minutes because it's all just available for you to use. This concept of kind of sharing your work is available. Obviously, if you don't want to share your work, you can lock it down. You don't have to share it, but there's literally millions of reports in any area you can think of that are already shared online. You shouldn't have to develop anything really from scratch unless you've got a very specific need. And then the other thing I really like, and I know I keep saying that sentence a lot, I really love this stuff, is how quickly I can get up and running on Tableau. You can, if you get on Amazon Web Services today, you can spin up a test, box for yourself. Within minutes, just 3-4 clicks, and you're set up with Tableau. Your instance will be up in 15 minutes, and you can start using it connected to your data. And if you wanted an easy dance, you set up a Tableau enterprise server on site for a customer now.
It's usually less than a day, end-to-end, if you really want to, the install itself is an hour maybe, and then, I like to do some administrative things to configure backups and make sure it's all solid.
Sure.
But that's, less than a day's work for sure.
Less than a day's work. And it looks like one server pretty much runs the thing?
Yeah.
All right, very cool. And then when I've got a cloud instance, you don't even have that, right? How long does it take to set up a cloud instance?
Yeah, cloud's even easier. It's just the transaction of signing up and telling Tableau how many users you like. They've got a hosted solution ready there for you in the cloud, and you just get a username and password, and you're good to go. You can start publishing and sharing
right
straight away.
And we've been successful integrating that with Lawson Data. As you can saw, a couple of these reports you saw, especially the first one. Dan put that together yesterday with IC location data, and all the Lawson data is kind of available to you to bring into Tableau and analyze in all these different ways. And if you've ever used pivot tables, this is how I use pivot tables. I don't really know what the outcome is going to be until I pull this stuff into these different columns and rows. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what I'm looking for, because I'm not, my mind doesn't work that way. But then when I pull it in, once I see the data, I really like the way that the data is represented. That's when I know I've got what I need. Sometimes it's hard for me to visualize. That's what I like about Tableau. It kind of helps me create the report without me having to think too much about it. I think that's kind of all we had, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen and head and bring the chat back here. All right, can you guys still hear us? All right, so let's go ahead and let's see some of the questions that you might have, and we'll do our best to answer it. And if I can't answer a question for whatever reason, I'll take down your name and I'll make sure that I get back to you with an answer shortly. Anything? So Chris is asking, have you dealt with the Infor Healthcare Analytic BI report tool? Actually, personally, I haven't, but I know one of our consultants is actually, I think that's the tool that he's been using. So I'll have to kind of ask him about his experience there. And I think only very relatively recently has he dealt with that. But Chris, I just wrote down your name, and I'm gonna get back to you with what his experience is, if that is your question, in fact. And then Melissa asked, can Tableau utilize tabular models as a data source?
I'm not sure what she's referring to with tabular models, but I guess.
Why don't you just talk about the different data sources it can use, and then that.
Yeah, I mean, there's almost anything you can think of, Tableau can connect to it. So, obviously like SQL Server, Oracle, but, Amazon Redshipt's another popular one. All kinds of big data sources like Hadoop, Teradata, Splunk is something I'm using more recently. And people write drivers for things that you wouldn't even think of you could use, like MongoDB and, other kind of out-of-the-way data sources. So my answer, I guess, is very likely. I just need to know kind of more what you're referring to.
Okay. So yeah, we can. If you end up updating that question, Melissa, I'll bring it back up. Does it have browser requirements? Does it work with LSF10? So. From what I know, it works with every browser, including all the mobile stuff. I don't think it works on IE7, if that's what you're asking. But all the modern browsers are definitely great. And as far as LSF10, there's really nothing within Tableau that cares about LSF. It connects directly to your data. And what we've done, we've actually created a connector for Lawson to kind of make it a little easier for you to digest the data. But that is almost an unnecessary part. It's just kind of make the data more playable to work with, and that really has nothing to do with LSF10. Now, as far as Portal and Mingle and whatever, the embedding of Tableau reports within any of those, you can go back to any version of Lawson, and it will be compatible, and including it's very future-proof as well, because it just goes right into your browser.
Right. that embed code is just a JavaScript, so it really works with almost anything.
And let me ask you, Dan, are all Tableau reports kind of automatically compatible with mobile? Is that something you have to kind of consider as you're developing it?
Well, there's two-part answer to that. So you can install on any kind of mobile device. There's an app for Tableau, and so you can sort of say Tableau mobile app, install it, and that will work right out of the box with anything. If you want to get more custom, you can do that. And I've done this recently. You have to do a little bit more development with the Tableau APIs and make it sort of fit the screen and all that with mobile. The good news is that you get a lot of the gestures that go along with mobile devices will actually work in a Tableau dashboard, so you don't lose that interactive feel.
Nice.
So it's pretty nice.
So Lesia is asking, I get that you like Tableau and I have experience with it, but can you compare it to other industry leaders such as QuickView, Sense, and MicroStrategy? Do you know any of those?
Sure. So, and we can maybe post this after the fact. There's a really nice report from Gartner that was comparing total cost of ownership for most of these major platforms. And there's a lot of detail in that report, but some of the highlights that I took away were basically, like QuickView and QuickView and Tableau are in the same kind of data discovery category. And a lot of times Tableau edges them out based on two competitive advantages. One, it connects to a lot of different data sources that QuickView can't. And number two, it's just very, very easy to learn. As we've seen and demonstrated, I can teach almost anybody how to do a dashboard in about 10 minutes, and that brings that total cost of ownership down more than almost anyone else in the space. MicroStrategy is a little bit different player because they're more of a total solution, including warehousing, ETL, everything soup to nuts. Tableau is not that. It's not an ETL tool. It's just a display and data discovery and visualization tool, so it's not really easy to compare. But
got it.
It is, for sure an industry leader.
And Santi asks, can it connect to any other platform such as ImageNow? Now, from a platform connectivity standpoint, I'd have to check with ImageNow. I'm not familiar with their API as well. I know that you can connect to their data source. You can certainly connect to the image base and pull all those images into Tableau. That can all be done. It's a little bit of custom work. It would sound like certainly not impossible, but I don't know if there is a connector per se to ImageNow. That's something that ImageNow would probably be able to answer well. Let's see. Okay, Timothy's asking, wouldn't it be expensive to use Tableau if users are going to modify or drill into reports? I don't think that the drilling into reports would be anything.
Yeah, that sort of just goes along with the server licenses. So however many server licenses you have, people are enabled to do that. The incremental expense would come when you want someone to have a desktop, soup to nuts,
like create a brand new report from scratch.
Brand new report from scratch. That does cost a little more.
Gotcha. Okay. Good question. Let's see here. I'm just reading. Regina, sorry if I butchered your name there. Can Tableau utilize the landmark derived field? That's a good question, actually. The derived fields, yes. Here's why I can say that, because you can actually you can use the web API and then call the web API from Tableau to get your data back. You could do that. So as far as the derived fields that are not stored in the database, if you were going directly against the database, likely no. But if you were going against the web API, you could get that data. We haven't done it, but I'm quite sure it's possible. There's quite a few of you asking about what is the cost of an environment and the server and whatnot. Please feel free to contact me. There's every situation is different. Depends on whether or not you're going to be on-prem or cloud, and how many users you're going to have, and how many servers you want to spin up, and what your use of it, clustering, and things like that. But I can tell you, total cost of ownership is among the lowest in the industry. And really, when you consider your total cost of ownership, I hope that you consider your implementation cost, because it's near nothing. It's basically you set it up and spin it up, and you know, it's just building the reports essentially.
Number of FTEs needed to run it.
Right. The number of FTEs needed to run it is near nothing, basically, because ours just runs on its own. I haven't had to do anything with it. Yeah. And then training costs also. You don't really need to train people in something that's super intuitive, and there's plenty of free training kind of available online. So that's the total cost of ownership there. Let's see. And then, again, another name that I'm probably going to destroy is it Beatrice, maybe? I'm not sure. Sorry. Can we get point-in-time HR data, meaning a report that shows me a list of people who were in Department X, what their job title and salary was last year or 2 years ago. Currently, Addins shows me current title. Okay, so yes, you can, only in as much as Lawson is storing that data. So, you know, Lawson has quite a few fields or tables, like you got PR rate hist for your rate history table, your salary history. You got your personal action history and your HR history table. You could pull all those together to kind of give a very good story of historical. And then, you know, you could, as you saw with how Tableau works, for example, you can have a little slide bar that you can kind of say, let me slide this back to 2013. Let me slide this back to 2012 and see what it looked like. And again, you can do all of this within Crystal as well. You just don't get that interactivity. So that the report you're asking for can likely be even built within Crystal, except it would probably just take a little bit more work to do, and you would have to keep rerunning it to kind of get the data that you want. So Glenn asks, we're hearing that Crystal reports won't be a part of future LDI. Is that true? No, that is not correct from what I understand. In fact, I have to admit, I had heard that as well, but I've been in touch with Infor extensively in the past couple of weeks, and we got some good clarity. There's nothing in the roadmap that talks about getting rid of support for Crystal reports as of yet, and current and future planned versions, from what I understand, are going to support Crystal. Best thing to do is, you know, obviously, you know, hear it from Infor as well. But that statement that I shared with you at the beginning of the presentation, and it was also emailed out to you, that is directly from Infor, so that should give you some confidence that that's not going away. Let's see. So there's a question, can you give us the name of the Gartner report? Yeah, actually, I will go ahead and post the whole presentation, and there's a link to the Gartner report on the presentation. So
there's two. The Magic Quadrant is one. The total cost of ownership is a separate report. I'll give you both of the links so you can publish them.
Okay, yeah, so we'll definitely publish those. And again, I do see a lot of questions about cost and licensing. Please go ahead and contact me directly on those, because that's a longer conversation that I'm not sure everybody would be interested in, but we can definitely talk about it. Santi is asking, is it SSL, meaning can you secure it using SSL? I know that you can, so you can use your current SSL, your certificate to basically lock down the communication using SSL. And as far as single sign-on link with AD, yes, absolutely. You can implement single sign-on within Tableau so that you have single sign-on within your organization. Timothy is asking, can we get a copy of this presentation? Absolutely. All our presentations do get posted online. This one, we've had a lot of requests to post online, so we're going to do that relatively quickly. I'm going to do my best to get it up by tomorrow morning, maybe even tonight. And you'll have not only, so this is what will be posted online. The actual PowerPoint presentation will be there. The video of this webinar will be there. and the Gartner Reports links will be there, and any other attachments, and the link to our these reports that I showed you that are kind of interactive and online that you can play with. Those will also be there, and I will actually post that as you guys exit this webinar. You'll have that link kind of posted there. And then, so feel free to contact us with any questions regarding Crystal, regarding LBI. If you have needs there with it regarding Tableau, please you can contact us on our website at nogalis.com. There's a contact page. There's actually a great functionality there for making an appointment. You can pick your own time, so it's convenient, and then we'll set up a call with you. If you have further questions today, you can go to our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Nogalis Inc. And we've actually put up a post there. You can ask any further questions. It doesn't look like there's any left, but if there are and we didn't address them, I'm sorry. But we will definitely respond to all your questions on the Facebook page if you still have some. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining. And I'm going to end the meeting, and that will give you a link to the Tableau page on our site that you can play with those interactive reports. Thanks again, and have a great day.